Some people and some cases are like a strange, slow-motion car crash. Unsure how those involved can't see that disaster is already in motion. This is very much one of those cases. The true story of Lucy McHugh. Viewer discretion is advised for this educational documentary. Welcome back to CASE Documentaries. I bring you true crime, disturbing stories and other things that you may later regret knowing with regular uploads every week. Please do join the quickly growing, incredibly supportive CASE family by hitting subscribe now and turning on notifications. Remember, choosing to be kind can save a life in many ways. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me. Our love and respect goes out to those that knew and loved Lucy and all those affected by this case. Lucy McHugh was a normal 12-year-old girl from Southampton, England. She lived with her mum Stacey and her mum's partner Richard. She was bright, bubbly, intelligent and always eager to learn. Her family called her Brains because she was so switched on. Lucy, who went to Redbridge Community School, loved playing with the babies in her family. She had her heart set on becoming a pro bono lawyer in the US, aiming to help people who could not afford to help themselves. Her school teacher said that at one stage she wanted to be a mechanic, then a fashion designer, but in the end she decided she wanted to study law. No one had any doubt in their mind that she would achieve it, because she was just Lucy. In May 2017, everything changed for Lucy. Stepdad Richard's friend, Stephen, was facing the prospect of being made homeless. So Richard did what any good friend may do, and invited Stephen to live with them, Stacey and Lucy, in Southampton. Stacey put in a good word at the care home where she worked and got Stephen a job there. It was an opportunity for him to have a fresh start and really turn his life around. Up until this point, life had been kind of hard for Stephen. He had spent a large part of his childhood in care, and at the age of 14, he was sentenced to 2 years in a Young Offenders Institute. During his time in a Young Offenders Institute for his crime, Stephen, along with 2 other inmates, barricaded themselves in the servery before causing thousands of pounds worth of damage and attacking staff with sharp kitchen implements. In adulthood, Stephen struggled to find a purpose. He became obsessed with reptiles and tattoos. He owned several snakes, and while he was not a tattoo artist, he would provide a tattooing service to anyone looking for a cut-price tattoo. Stephen was covered in artwork himself. A slight or skinny man, he made up for his lack of stature with his arguably impressive array of artwork, including a tattoo of the word freedom across his forehead. This made him a curiosity to 12-year-old Lucy. Stephen was 23, a grown man with an impressive collection of reptiles. It's easy to see how he may have captured the attention of someone her age. Lucy quickly developed a crush on Stephen, a crush that Stephen disturbingly did little to diminish. Instead of rebuffing her, keeping his distance, or indeed moving out, Stephen encouraged Lucy and sadly exploited her interest in him. To him, she was available in the same house, even in the bedroom opposite his, and he took full criminal, sick advantage. Notes written by Lucy told the full story of their relationship. Heartfelt and explicit, the notes give details of the loss of her virginity to Stephen in May 2017. The very same month he moved into her house. The notes described the repeated intercourse between them which followed, and the emotions which Lucy experienced throughout. Obviously, we know that this wasn't a relationship, it was simply In one note, Lucy tells Nicholson that whatever this is between them has to end, but it did not. Unbeknownst to her parents, Lucy was used by Stephen from the moment he set foot in the family home. Her stepfather's best friend was grooming her from the very moment he was able to get close enough. Over the course of 14 months, Lucy became a shadow of her former self. In Lucy's young and immature eyes, she was in a relationship. Stephen was her boyfriend, and she made no secret of this to her friends. Hearing reports from other pupils, Lucy's teachers were naturally concerned. Although Lucy denied any intimate relationship to her teachers, they immediately did the right thing, referring their concerns to the local multi-agency safeguarding hub, first of all in 2017, and then again after Lucy had moved to a different school in 2018. On both occasions, a team had investigated and found nothing to be concerned about. No action was taken. By May 2018, Lucy told her cousin that her relationship with Stephen had now become a terrible burden. He was violent and she was scared of him. Lucy and Stephen were often arguing in the house, and while Lucy's mother and stepfather were aware of the fights, they put it down to teenage angst. The pair just didn't get on, is what they told themselves. Given her age, it was normal to be withdrawn or secretive, right? In this case, wrong. Eventually, the arguments were too hard to ignore, and Lucy's stepfather asked Stephen Nicholson to leave. Something wasn't right, and he knew it. On the day Stephen moved out, Lucy told Richard that he had something she needed to tell him and her mother later that night. But Stacey didn't return home until Lucy had gone to sleep. The moment had passed. A couple of days after moving out, Stephen left work early. He claimed to be suffering from sickness and diarrhea. Working in a care home that looked after the elderly, Stephen knew that he would not be allowed back to work until 48 hours after the last symptoms had presented themselves. But Stephen wasn't actually ill. He was simply buying himself time. On Wednesday the 25th of July 2018, Lucy left her house at 9 a.m. A CCTV camera at the local Tesco shows Lucy walking across the car park at 9:30 a.m, just half an hour after she left home in a white top and camouflage leggings. She had no phone, but she can be seen walking purposefully, glancing down at her watch. She didn't want to be late to wherever it was she was going. A woman walking her dog in the sports centre grounds around 10 a.m. recalled seeing a girl matching Lucy's description heading towards the top of the cricket pitch. But Lucy never made it home. When she wasn't home later that evening, her parents began to worry. They phoned the police, who launched a missing persons investigation. And the next morning, Stephen comforted Stacey and Richard. They were obviously growing increasingly concerned for their missing daughter. Stephen sent a text message to Stacey saying, "I hope they find her safe. Police are good at their job and they will find her soon. Keep your chin up and stay positive." But the police would not find Lucy safe and well. Just hours later, her body was discovered. Lucy describes the harrowing moment she was informed of her daughter's death. "I felt the blood turn to ice inside my veins. The room began to spin, and I had the sudden urge to vomit. I dashed from the room, feeling like my whole world was about to implode. I couldn't breathe." On the 26th of July 2018, a dog walker found Lucy's body at the Southampton Outdoor Sports Centre. She had been attacked with a sharp implement until she was no longer breathing. The police didn't wait around. Stephen was arrested on suspicion of her murder the day after the body had been found. His arrest sparked one of the biggest evidence searches in UK criminal history. They trawled through thousands of hours of CCTV footage in the local area, all to piece together his movements in the day before. On Tuesday the 24th of July, he phoned in sick to work. He told the office that he had sickness and diarrhea. He knew that it was company policy for carers to remain off for 48 hours after the last symptoms had passed. But Nicholson was not sick, at least not in that meaning of the word. That afternoon, he cycled up to the flat of an elderly man whom he knew in Curzon Court, a home situated right beside the sports centre where Lucy was found. He was there for around 3 hours. There, he ordered a pair of new trainers for delivery first thing the next morning. That evening, he messaged Lucy on Facebook Messenger, but he deleted the messages soon after reading them. We'll never find out what those final messages read. At 8:15 a.m. on Wednesday, Nicholson cycled from his mother's home to the flat at Curzon Court, arriving at 8:30 a.m. At around 9 a.m, he took a trip to the nearby Tesco Express. He then met Lucy at the sports centre. CCTV unfortunately fell short here, but the police strongly suspected that Nicholson took her into the woods to the side of the top cricket pitch. Lucy told Stephen that she was pregnant and the baby was his. We can assume this was the given reason for the meeting. And there, deep in the foliage off of the beaten path, he attacked her. She was found with 27 markings to her body, most to the face and neck. The pathologist noticed that Lucy had some stab wounds on her arms and wrists. These could have been defensive wounds, as if she was desperately trying to protect herself. There was one unusual incised wound right across her wrist, as if the murderer had initially tried to make it look as if Lucy had done this to herself. Damage to the carotid artery led to sudden high-pressure blood loss, then unconsciousness, and very soon after that, her demise. After he had ended her, Nicholson returned to the flat at Curzon Court before cycling home. During questioning, Stephen admitted to detectives that he had corresponded with Lucy via Facebook Messenger. When police attempted to gain access to his Facebook account, it became apparent that he changed the passwords in the day prior to his arrest. He refused to hand over his new password. Officers were now at a loss. There was no DNA evidence at this point, and they could only hold him for 96 hours without charging him. They turned to a piece of legislation often used when dealing with terrorists, Section 53 of the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, or RIPA as it's commonly known. Stephen was bailed in relation to Lucy's murder, but charged again under RIPA for failing to hand over his Facebook password. He then went to trial at Southampton Crown Court, where he was sentenced to 14 months in prison for not handing over his password. This sentence bought police the time they needed to continue their investigation. Stephen had been very careful to cover his tracks. The police knew that they had their man, but there was no physical evidence or DNA linking him to the scene. The police turned to a cloud data analyst to study the location of Stephen's phone on the morning of Lucy's death. They didn't have the physical phone. This too had strangely disappeared before his arrest, but they didn't need it. They were able to pull location data from the cloud. This investigation showed Stephen had been in the vicinity where Lucy's body had been discovered. This was obviously exactly what they expected. It also showed that he deviated from the most direct route back to his house, stopping off at Tanner's Brook on his way home. Police immediately launched a fingertip search of the area. There they found a bag of partially burnt clothing, including a blood-soaked hoodie. It contained Stephen's and Lucy's DNA. They knew they finally had the evidence to charge their man. On the 18th of July 2019, Stephen was found guilty of Lucy's murder as well as 3 counts of violating her. The judge didn't hold back as she delivered the sentence. She was a 13-year-old child. Your selfishness and savagery have blighted her family's lives forever. The sentence is one of life in prison. Stephen was sentenced to life imprisonment and told he would serve a minimum of 33 years behind bars. He was also given 17-year concurrent prison sentences for each of the violation charges that he faced. It's unlikely he will ever see freedom again. Do you think the punishment fits the crimes here? What do you think could be done to avoid something like this happening again in the future? Let me know down in the comments. Please do hit like if you appreciate what I'm doing here. Thank you to everyone in the Dark Case crew. You too can become a channel member for just 99p. And a huge thank you to my patrons. Your support makes a massive difference. You too can support my work and be thanked in every video for just $5 per month. So thank you to Rachel David, Kathy Green, David James, Addy Alexander, Karen Jones, El Palmieri, James Harrington, Shane Woodward, Faster River, Stacey Krogerus, Summer Chambers, Mona Corona, Cepheid Variable, Anthony Watson, Jason Coward, Guardian Paler, Jeremy Sebrenek, Joy Burton, Dawn Crock, Michelle Mims, Natalie Lundquist, Anita Ford, Christina Garzon, Annette Parkins, Austin Lounsbury, Joe Ricciardi, Leisha Ball, and Darlene. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.